It is fire blight season. We have had wet, mild weather, which is the perfect conditions for fire blight. And fire blight is a bacterial disease. And most commonly, our plant diseases are fungal, but we do have some bacterial diseases out there, and fire blight is one of those. Fire blight is spread by insects visiting different plants. It can also be blown in by the wind or wind-blown rain or infected garden tools. So this is a perfect example of making sure that you disinfect your tools when you are working with plants, because a lot of times that's how diseases get spread. Now, fire blight typically affects apples, crab apples, Bradford pears, and hawthorn. It overwinters in cankers on branches, and cankers are sunken areas, and sometimes they're hard to notice. But if you are doing pruning in the dormant season and you see some of these areas, that'd be a good time to get those pruned out. When we start to get into early spring, those cankers will produce this sticky ooze that comes out of those, and that's when the infections start to set in. Blossoms usually become infected first because insects visit those blossoms and they carry the bacteria on their bodies, and then the infection starts. The blossoms will then turn brown and die. Tender shoots will also become infected. They're more susceptible to fire blight, and you'll see them start to turn brown and die as well. Once they start to dry out, they form this shepherd's hook appearance, as you can see here in this picture, and the dead leaves will remain attached to those dried shoots. So that's what you can look for. And if you see any of those things, it could be that your trees have fire blight. Now, as far as treatments go, bacterial diseases are pretty difficult to control. If you want to grow these types of trees in your home and in your yard, plant resistant cultivars. So that is a very important way to help overcome something like this. Don't over fertilize. Fire blight loves over-fertilized plants that have a lot of really fast-growing, succulent growth. They're more susceptible to fire blight. This runs in cycles. It doesn't usually kill trees. I know some trees that I keep an eye on every spring just get riddled with fire blight, and they come back every year. Now, it can reduce yields in these trees, and it can, if the tree is heavily infested, it can affect photosynthesis. But for the most part, it's not going to kill trees. It will just affect vigor if it's very bad. Now, you can prune out diseased branches, but again, disinfect those pruners between cuts. Cut below the affected area, about 8 to 12 inches. So examine that branch, see where it's infected, and then go down about 8 to 12 inches and make your cut there. And dispose of those branches. Don't just leave them laying in the yard, because they still contain the bacteria that can reinfect trees. Now, as far as sprays, you can use a Bordeaux mixture, which is a combination of copper, lime, and water. You can do that during the dormant season and bud break, and streptomycin can be used during the bloom cycle as well. Now, we do have an MU extension guide on this if you want to refer to that for more information, but that is a general overview on fire blight. Michele, I'll ask if you have anything you want to add to that.
Some of our more popular cultivars are very, very susceptible to fire blight. Cultivars like Jonathan, Gala, Granny Smith, whereas some of the older varieties and antique varieties tend not to be so susceptible. If you're trying to grow any of the hard cider varieties, they are very susceptible. It's really key to watch very young trees, especially newly planted trees. You can get later infections. Even say you plant a tree today, you can still get a fire blight infection in the next month. It will kill 1 or 2-year-old trees, especially as susceptible varieties. So if you're wanting to avoid fire blight, it's key to go to those disease-resistant varieties like Enterprise or Liberty. There's a brand new one out called Triumph from University of Minnesota that is also fire blight resistant. So look for those types of varieties.